NEBOSH IGC 2 Sample questions and answers. Question 1. An organization uses small quantities of toxic chemicals. A. Identify 4 possible routes of entry of toxic substances into the body. By inhalation. If the chemical's agents is in the form of dust, vapor, fume, gas, etc., it is the most rapid route of entrance. It has been estimated that 90% of the industrial poisons are absorbed through lungs. By ingestion. Any significant quantity of harmful liquid or solid will be swallowed without deliberate intent. It can occur directly, by mistake if chemicals are not properly labeled, or indirectly where small amount of contaminants are transferred from the fingers to the mouth if eating, drinking or smoking in chemical areas. By absorption, contact with the skin. Substances can enter through the skin, cuts or abrasions and conjunctiva of the eye. Chemicals can irritate the skin causing dermatitis. Penetrate the skin causing systemic toxicity. Damage the skin directly, such as acid injection. A forceful breach of the skin, perhaps as a result of injury, can carry harmful substances through the skin barrier. 1. Chemicals may injected hypodermically on sharps etc. For example, broken glass cuts the skin and transfers a biological or chemical agent. 2. Chemicals may be injected at high pressure, for example form hydraulic hoses. B. Explain the difference between acute and chronic health effects. Acute health effect, an adverse effect result from a single or short-term exposure to a reversible offending agent and producing an immediate or rapid effect. Examples: corrosive action, narcosis and primary irritation. Chronic health effect, an adverse health effect result from prolonged or repeated exposures with a gradual or latent and often irreversible effect that may often go unrecognized for a number of years. Example: cancer, sensitization, dermatitis and damage to body organs. C. Identify the sources of information which could be used in the assessment of risk of toxic substances. 1. Manufacturer's : material safety data sheet, provided by manufacturer of toxic substance. Product label : 2. Government bodies : 3. Enforcement agencies : various countries' enforcement agencies also publish information about toxic substances. That is HSE booklet EH40 for exposure limits. 4. ILO codes of practice, that is, safety in the use of chemicals at work. 5. Trade associations. 6. Insurance companies. 7. Organizations involved in occupational health may also provide information. D. Outline the control measures that might be required in order to minimize risks to workers. Elimination. This represents an extreme form of control to prohibit the use of high-risk and toxic substances. Reduction. The substitution of a less toxic substance in a place of more toxic one or the same substance in less toxic form. For example, toluene for benzene. Isolate : enclosure of hazard, totally enclose the process and handling system, for example putting lids on substances that have high volatile vapors. Local exhaust ventilation. Remove toxic substances at source itself. Dilution ventilation, provide sufficient general ventilation. Control : people, restrict people to toxic substances in the forms of age, distance, time, and gender. Period of exposure, reduce the time of exposure based on long-term exposure limits or short-term exposure limits. Good housekeeping, regular cleaning and disinfection of workplace and contaminated areas. Safe storage, Provision of safe storage and disposal of toxic substances. Prohibit eating, drinking and smoking in areas where toxic contamination occurs. Personal hygiene, arrangement for personal care, washing facility etc. Barrier creams and suitable hand protections are important considerations for chemical and biological risks. Respiratory protective equipment, respirators and breathing apparatus will be chosen based on APF, assigned protection factor, to ensure that equipments will provide the level of protection required. Personal protective equipment, suitable PPE for the hazard involved. Discipline, ensure procedure and rules are being followed and taking actions against not complying. Question 2. Identify the control measures that could be implemented to reduce the risk to pedestrians in areas where vehicles are maneuvering. Segregated systems for vehicular and pedestrian traffic. Appropriate road markings. Maintaining good visibility, mirrors, transparent doors, provision of lighting etc. Audible warnings on vehicles. Drawing up and enforcement of site rules. The provision of refuges. The wearing of high visibility clothing. A good standard of housekeeping. Training and supervision of drivers. Defined traffic routes. One-way systems. Speed control. Question 3. Outline the specific hazards associated with the use of battery-powered forklift trucks and state the precautions necessary in each case. Hydrogen gas being released during battery charging, proper ventilation to be provided to avoid the buildup of vapors. Electricity problems during charging which can lead to short circuit to electric shock or even death, so use residual current devices or properly earthed connections with insulated cables. Even load distribution on circuits. To avoid manual handling of liquids for batteries, use simple lifting machines. Corrosive acids caused by charging, which can splash over body and hands, can cause irritation, itching, so emergency washing facilities hand and eye, use of proper PPE. That is coverall and hand gloves etc. Question 4. Excavation work is being carried out on a construction site. Identify the control measures needed to reduce the risk to workers. Detection of services, from plans, use of cable, pipe detectors, beforehand. Support of sides to avoid collapse. Storage of materials and take it away from edge to protect excessive load. Stop blocks to prevent vehicles from falling into excavation. Barriers and guard rails to avoid fall into excavation. Ensure safe means of access, egress to the excavation areas. Testing for and ventilation of fumes and other toxic substances. Suitable means of pumping out water. Only competent personnel are allowed to work in an excavation. Use of suitable PPE. Question 5. A. Identify 4 mechanical hazards associated with the use of a pedestal drill. Entanglement of hair with the drill bit or chuck. Stabbing injuries from the end of the bit. Contact with the drill bit or chuck resulting in abrasions. Ejection of or impact by unclamped work pieces, made worse by the fact that the work piece may be spinning at fast speed on the bit. Cutting hazards may also be presented by metal swarf produced by the drilling process. B. Outline 4 control measures to reduce the risk of injury to operators of pedestal drills. Secure workpieces with clamps to prevent movement. Ensure equipment is properly maintained, remove faulty tools and disconnect from power when not in use. Wear appropriate PPE, suitable competent person are allowed to work on such equipments. Inform, instruct, supervise the workforce. Question 6. Outline the factors that may lead to occupational stress amongst workers. Culture of the organization. Shift work, unsociable hours, excessive overtime. Job insecurity, fear of redundancy. Repetitive, monotonous work. Lack of breaks and control over job. Work rate too high or too low. The working environment. Relationships, supervisors and peers. Harassment and bullying. Fear of violence. Lack of communication. Personal and social factors. Question 7. A. Identify the effects on the human body from a severe electric shock. Electric shock, resulting in stopping of heart and respiratory rhythm. It also leads to loss of consciousness, fibrillation and strong cramp-like effects. Electrical burns. Electric burns are deeper than other burn types, resulting from the heating effect of the current, which burns the body tissue and take longer time to heal. Secondary effects, such as falling from a height as a result of electric shock. This will lead to fractures, bleeding, organs damage and death. B. Identify 4 factors that could affect the severity of injury resulting from contact with electricity. Current path through the body. Length of contact time or duration. Conductivity, resistance of the body. Voltage. Frequency of current flow. Conductivity of the environment. Nature of the contact. Age and health status of victim. Question 8. A. In relation to the classification of fires, give an example of a material, fuel, that falls within each of the classes A, B, C and D. Fire class example: fuel. Solids: A. Wood, clothes, papers, plastics, liquids: B. Diesel, petrol, oil, paints and thinners. Gases: C. Acetylene, hydrogen sulfide, LPG, natural gas. Metals: D. Sodium, aluminum. Electrical: ET, fire involving electrical apparatus, oils and fats. F4K, fire involving cooking oils and fats. B. Identify 2 methods of heat transfer and explain how each method contributes to spread of fire. Convection: when gas is heated, it expands and becomes less dense and thus it moves up. This explains the spread of fire to the upper story of a building due to hot gases rising up lift shafts and stairwells. Radiation: heat is transferred as invisible rays through the air. Example: clothes hung near an electric heater for drying could ignite and flame can jump across a street to the building nearby. Conduction: materials as metals are good heat conductors, while glass and wood are insulators. Direct burning of a combustible material in naked flame. Direct burning: when combustible materials have direct contact with naked flame, this will occur. Curtains or carpet tiles may be consumed by combustion and enable fire to be transferred to the other nearby areas. Question 9. Outline the hazards that a worker could be exposed to when using petrol-driven chainsaw to cut down a tree. Operational hazards. Kickback is when a chain tooth at the upper quadrant of the guide bar tip cuts into wood without cutting through it. The chain cannot continue moving and the bar is driven in an upward arc toward the operator. Equipment hazards, as cutting, ejection, noise, vibration, etc. Flying sticks, leading to eye injury. Heat hazard, due to working under the sun. Tripping hazard, due to obstruction by tree parts. Biological hazard, due to contaminated ground, insects, etc. Wood dust hazards, leading to asthma, dermatitis, etc. Petrol hazards as carbon monoxide hazards, fire, fumes, etc. Question 10. A maintenance worker regularly uses handheld grinder, and is exposed to vibration. A. Identify the symptoms that the worker may experience due to this exposure. The typical symptoms are numbness of fingers, blanching of fingers, swollen painful joints, reduction in manual dexterity, things may fall from hands and fine adjustment by hand cannot be achieved. C. Outline 6 control measures that can be used to reduce the risk from vibration. The control measures are: eliminate the risk, by process change to eliminate the need for using vibrating handheld tools. Reduce the risk, to modify operating procedure so that the pressure upon the tool required by operator is reduced. Proper selection of equipment and maintenance. Reducing time of exposure of operators to vibration. This may necessitate recruitment of new staff. Health surveillance to detect the early signs and symptoms of vibration illness. Use of appropriate PPE, as gloves to keep hand warm. Question 11. Identify 8 common causes of fires in the workplace. Common causes may be split into 4 main groups. I. Careless actions and accidents. A. Smoking in prohibited areas. B. Welding, hot work. C. Unattended or poor electrical connections. 2. Misusing equipment. A. Overloading electrical circuits. B. Failure to follow service instructions. C. Failure to repair faulty machinery, equipment promptly. 3. Defective machinery or equipment. A. Electrical short circuits. B. Electrical earth fault. C. Electrical insulation failure. 4. Deliberate ignition. A. Insurance fraud. B. Concealment of another crime. C. Political activists or vandalism.
Please give comment and suggestions.
Thank you.
Subscribe our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for more updates. Thank for visit our channel. See you next class.
Thank you.